Hello and welcome back. In this session, we are going to add QnA Maker to our bot along with our already running Luis. Just like Luis, we are going to add a QnA Maker recognizer in our activity handler, which is our RR bot or main dialog. And then using this recognizer, we are going to make HTTP post calls to our knowledge base API, which we will get upon publishing our knowledge base from the QnAMaker.ai platform. So just like Luis, QnA Maker is also a Azure-based natural language processing service, and it can easily create a natural conversation layer over your data, and then it can be used to find most appropriate answer based on your trained model or trained knowledge base for any given natural language input. So QnA Maker also supports a lot of different languages. We are going to use English language to create our knowledge base. Using QnA Maker in chatbot is similar to what we did for Luis. We are again going to create a knowledge base app, add some question answer pairs to it, which can be seen as equivalent to what we did in Luis. We added utterances. We are going to add question answer pairs to QnA Maker and then train our model and then save it and then publish it in QnAMaker.ai platform. And once it is published, we are going to get a HTTP API or REST API endpoint. And we are going to use QnA Maker recognizer to connect to this endpoint and send some questions to QnA Maker and then receive an answer as JSON response. So as you can see in the attached screenshot, QnA Maker is usually used to just simply serve some static type of questions, like when you have static information. Many organizations will have static information like FAQs or just some information in question answer format in PDF formats, or maybe the FAQ pages in their websites. So we can use these PDFs and URLs to train our knowledge base. QnA Maker can also be used to add a lot of chit chat question answer pairs to our bot. These are the questions that are totally unrelated to the domain for which our bot is created, but sometimes we still want to make our bot a little more friendlier and avoid closing the conversations abruptly. So we can add some basic chit chat questions like how are you, or maybe how is the weather, or tell me a joke, something like that, using QnA Maker. So as you can see in the screenshot, the user just asked the simple questions like how do I programmatically update my knowledge base, and we just got a simple response. There was no dialogue involved or any complexities involved. We just got a simple one-liner response back from our QnA Maker, and the response is similar to what we get for Luis. We are going to get a simple answer in our JSON, and we are going to get a score from QnA Maker, which tells us how confident the QnA Maker is to serve the user with that particular response. And then we are going to get some metadata based on the training of our knowledge base. So just like we had some pre-built domains built in our Luis, QnA Maker also provides some pre-built chit-chat dataset readily available to be integrated with your knowledge base. This can be integrated along with your own custom question answer pairs that you will add for your domain. So we can have a mix of both the chit-chat dataset made available by Microsoft and also our own QnA pairs. And as I mentioned earlier, we are going to get a query prediction endpoint, which will be a REST API based endpoint once we train our knowledge base and publish it. And we are going to use the details like knowledge base key, knowledge base ID, and the endpoint host in our bot to connect to QnA Maker. So let's go to QnAMaker.ai portal and start adding some question answer pairs to our knowledge base. So I've logged in into my QnAMaker.ai portal. This is the same account that we created in section 2 of this course, and if you remember, we created a knowledge base called RRKB. Let's go ahead and click on the knowledge base name. This will open the knowledge base, and we also added one sample QnA pair when we created the knowledge base. So I added one question which says what are the restaurant timings, and then we entered the answer and then trained and published our QnA Maker. And then we trained our QnA Maker and tested. I'm gonna add another question answer pair just for demonstration purpose. And I'm going to add a simple question asking for the restaurant address. And as an answer, I'm going to just enter some random address. So we have a total of 2 question answer pairs added to our knowledge base. I'm gonna just save it and train our knowledge base. Later on we'll test these 2 questions from our bot. We need to publish our knowledge base. So each time you add some question answer pairs or upload a file, we need to train and save our knowledge base and then publish it again to make the latest model available over API. So I'm just going to publish it here. So once you publish your knowledge base, you're going to get some HTTP post call details, and these details will contain the knowledge base ID. It will contain the host where your knowledge base is hosted, and then you will get authorization endpoint key right here. So we will need all these details to make our bot be able to connect to this HTTP API from our bot. So our knowledge base is ready and it is published. Let's go back to our Visual Studio Code and start adding QnA Maker to our bot. So I'm in my rrbot.js file, which is our activity handler. To add QnA Maker capabilities to our bot, we need to add the QnA Maker recognizer, something similar to what we did for Louis. So I'm going to add QnA Maker recognizer, which is also provided by Bot Builder AI library. Once you have added QnA Maker, something similar to dispatch recognizer we created for Louis, we need to add recognizer for QnA Maker. So just under dispatch recognizer, I'm going to add QnA Maker recognizer. I've copy pasted the whole block. So QnA Maker recognizer is created using knowledge base ID, endpoint key, and host that we just saw in our published URL. So QnA Maker will need all these credentials and values to be able to connect to our knowledge base API endpoint. So I'm picking up these values from our .env file. So I'm gonna just go inside our env file and enter all these values. I'm just going to copy paste all of them. So I'm going to copy knowledge base ID. Then I'm going to copy endpoint key. And then we need the host name. So for host name, you can just copy the whole URL. And that's it. Let's go back to our rrbot.js file. So this time we want to use QnA Maker outside our constructor. So I'm just going to create a global object for this. So before we start routing our queries to QnA Maker, let's understand our objective here. So what we want to do here is whenever we get a none intent from Louis, we want the query to be routed to QnA Maker, but only in cases when previous intent is also null or it doesn't have any value. So if previous intent doesn't have any value, that means like there is no dialog which is running right now or initiated right now, and we can simply just serve the query using QnA Maker, give back a simple response to user, and just end the conversation with a suggested actions dialog after that. So this will not abruptly close any ongoing conversation between user and bot. So routing requests between QnA Maker and Luis depends a lot on your business logic and your business needs and how you want to design your bot. So there are a lot of different ways in which you can manage exiting the conversation in an ongoing dialogue, or switching between intents or topics, or serving QnA Maker responses in between dialogue. So it really depends on how you want to build your bot and how much you want it to be friendly with the user. I'm gonna give a simple example where we are serving the QnA Maker response when there is no ongoing intent or dialogue between user and bot. So to do that, I need to add another else if case here, and then I'm going to check if the value of intent is none. So in Luis, if no other cases matches, so right now we have just two cases, make reservation and cancel reservation. If none of these are matched for the user's incoming message, then we are going to get a none intent. And then I'm also going to check if there is any previous intent set. Yeah, I'm going to check if there is nothing set for this value. And if this case matches, I'm going to call QnA Maker using the global object we just created, and then calling get answers method for this object, and then we need to pass the context. So the context will have the incoming query from the user, the message, and then we are calling the QnA Maker and passing the incoming query and getting back a result, which will be stored in the result variable here, and this will be in JSON format. So once we get the result, we need to send an activity, and I'm going to just use context.send activity method. So as the result is in JSON format, we need to parse the values, and the answer will be in the first item of the result array with the key called answer. That's it. And then everything else remains the same. So you can see here that using QnA Maker is really simple and pretty straightforward and not as complicated as using Luis. But using the combination of both and creating your own routing logic based on Luis and QnA Maker and both of their confidence and prediction scores is something that is really up to you, and you can use your own logic to create perfect routing logic for your bot. So let's go ahead and try to test our bot. I'm going to start my bot. So our bot is up and running. Let's go to emulator. So this time let's click on restaurant address. This is going to just send restaurant address as a text message to our bot, and our bot will redirect it to Luis. Luis should give back a none intent as we haven't trained our Luis to respond to this particular query, and then we should get an answer back from our QnA Maker. And there you go. So we just received an answer from QnA Maker, and both our Luis and QnA Maker integrations are working. Let's go back to our Visual Studio Code and add suggested actions message to be sent after the bot has responded to our query. So let's go to our dispatcher function and copy the send suggested actions method, and Let's go to our else if statement, and after sending the answer I want to send suggested actions message. Just paste it there and then restart our bot once again. So our bot is up. Let's go back to emulator, restart the conversation and click on restaurant address. So this time we got a response back from QnA maker, and then we also get a suggested actions message. And if we choose make reservation or cancel reservation, that particular dialog should run. Let's go ahead and choose make reservation. And there you go, you can see make reservation dialog has started. So we have successfully integrated both QnA maker and Luis, and they are both working together just fine. So in a similar manner, you can add multiple different component dialogues with different intents mapped to them, and then add a lot of different question answer pairs and build a very comprehensive bot. So that's all for this lecture guys, and I will see you in next session.